Hey everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and in today's episode, I want to talk about priority management. I've written down some notes here on my handy dandy sketch pad, and I want to make sure to bring the value you hear today on this episode. So, priority management. This reminds me of a quote that I saw on someone's office back when I worked in oil and gas, and it said, "Lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part." I say that again. Lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. And what this means is if you failed to plan and you are now needing something last minute because you did not do something you could have done 1 or 2 weeks ago, and now it's due all of a sudden and you need me to do something, it's not an emergency for me. I'm not going to work overtime and stay late and work over the weekend on an item that was backed up due to your lack of planning. And I think the moral of the story here is that you need to plan. You need to make sure to allow ample time to get the things done that you need to get done. And especially this gets difficult when you're working with multiple people because there are different bottlenecks along the way. If it's just you, then okay, you can slap yourself on the hand and blame yourself. But now if you were dragging butt and you weren't getting the thing done that you needed to do, the next person is going to be upset at you because now you're causing them unnecessary stress and anxiety, or you'll feel the unnecessary stress and anxiety because someone else just dropped the ball and gave you something at the very last minute that has to be completed with a very short turnaround time. And I've mentioned recently that we've got an endless stream of notifications. We've got texts, calls, emails, WhatsApp messages on Snapchat, on Instagram. We've got Zoom calls now with all the working from home stuff and so on. And this can be extremely overwhelming. This can be very distracting. The chimes and the notifications on your phone that continue to go off. Every time you hear the chime, you look over at the phone, you're curious to see what's going on and who messaged you and what they're saying. And it's constantly interrupting you in your focus. And one thing that I like to point out is that if you're continuously interrupting your focus, you're not going to ever get into that deep work. It's almost like when you're about to fall asleep and then the dog barks or someone rings the doorbell or your phone goes off and you wake up. Imagine that happening over and over again. Like you're about to get into the zone, even though sleeping is not really in the zone, but when you're about to go into that sleep state where you're recovering and something's interrupting you, you don't want that to happen, right? Same thing goes for when you're trying to get into the flow and being productive of your workday. You're getting into the task, the creation, making the content like I'm doing for you here. And if I had my phone dinging and the doorbell ringing and dogs barking and cats jumping all over the place, it can be very distracting and I'll lose my train of thought. Maybe I have to pause the video and restart, and it just ends up taking a lot more time overall. So you need to make sure to focus on your priorities and get very crystal clear on what your priorities are. But to do that, you've got to really brainstorm and make that list. I updated my schedule recently to have an hour and a half of deep work, 90 minutes of deep work in the morning after my morning routine. And I do this before I work out so that I can really get in the zone, get the most important critical tasks out of the way before I go work out and shower and kind of take that hour to an hour and a half to do all of that and get the blood pumping. But of course, when I wrote that down on my schedule and I put it in my Google Calendar, I had to define, well, okay, this is for my deep work. What is my deep work? What are those critical tasks that I have to get done, those things that move the needle in my business? And I defined it how I think it is right now, if that makes sense. I think that my critical tasks, I've got my whiteboard over here. Sorry, I can't talk. My words are mumbling together. My critical tasks right now that I think are important for me to create content, to engage with people. So I've got 30 social media engagements a day. I've got 1 social media post at least that I want to post, and that could be a video, a podcast, a real estate thing, etc. And I want to spend an hour of time learning a day, going through an online course, taking notes, dedicating a full hour to learning, and that's my daily critical tasks for the weekdays on my working days. I give myself Saturday and Sunday off. If I do those tasks on those days, bam, it's a bonus. I'm getting more momentum. And sometimes I do a mix, right? I'll do an hour of learning on the weekend in a social media post, but I won't necessarily engage with 30 people. But those are the 3 critical tasks that I make it a point to do during the week because it's getting my message out there. It's getting people to look at my profile and kind of keep me top of mind whenever they think of real estate needs. And it's helping me to learn and continue to expand my mind, right? So that's That's what I have defined as my critical tasks. I constantly bounce this off of other entrepreneurs and people in real estate. And I'm like, hey, what are your critical tasks? Are yours kind of like this? Lead generation, should I do 2 hours of cold calling? I hate cold calling. I want to create content. So that's why I'm leaning towards the content creation and the attraction marketing, where people who want to work with me, they'll shoot me a DM. Chris, I love what you're doing. Awesome. You're making so much great content. You're showing up every day, no matter what, rain or sunshine, I guess. Is that how the saying goes? Rain or shine, there it is. You're showing up, rain or shine. I know you're going to be there for me during a transaction as well if you're showing this work ethic for something where you're not even really trying to monetize it yet. And so that is how I attract my business and attract opportunities to me, relationships and things like that. So that's my priorities. I've gotten very clear on what it is that I think I need to do to move the needle in my business and in my life. And you want to define your 20% activities. I've mentioned that before, the 80-20 rule, Pareto principle, 20% of the work accounts for 80% of the results, right? That 80-20 principle tends to be true in a variety of things in life. But of course, you've got to figure out what are your 20% activities. I've heard this quote said before, and I really like it. It says, the little hinges that swing big doors. You've got to determine what are those little hinges that swing the big doors, the little things that you do that make the most impact in your business. That's what you need to get crystal clear on. All the little things that take a lot of time and really don't move the needle very much, you can delegate that and outsource it. Focus on the key stuff that you have to do that you can't really replace yourself with, like the ones that you actually have to be there to do. That's your 20% that move the needle. Focus on that. Now let's talk about inbox management. This kind of goes with the priority management. We're bombarded by so many platforms, by so many messages, people trying to call for our attention. I've got my phone on silent face down as I'm recording this video. I'm almost afraid to turn it over. Right now I actually don't have notifications because I checked it before I hit record, but usually it's 10 notifications. Instagram, Facebook, emails, like I said, all those things from before. People trying to get a hold of me, commenting, engaging. I've got to like stuff back, reply, etc. Those are all the little things that I've got to do. But right now I'm making this podcast for you, so that is on silent. My phone is face down. I don't want to get distracted and like see the phone light up and look down at it. I'm guilty of this sometimes where the phone lights up and I'm talking to someone on Zoom and I kind of glance over and you can see in the camera that I'm getting distracted, and now my mind's on the message that I just read and it's taking me away from being here with you recording this video. That's why it's face down, out of sight, out of mind. I'm even thinking about forwarding important emails to my assistant that I recently brought onto my team. I mean, virtual assistant, found her on Upwork. She's been doing a great job so far. My only issue and challenge right now is that I don't know what all tasks I can give to her. I feel like I'm not utilizing her fully. She booked a haircut for me. It was awesome. She's made an introduction. She found someone who can make YouTube thumbnail videos for me, so I don't have to be making that myself. And the last 2 videos, actually, if you want to look at them on YouTube, that was not from me. Someone else made the thumbnails. And it was just great to not have to spend 20 minutes or 10 minutes fiddling around with the thumbnail when someone else could just do it for me and get the gist of the ideas of what I want to convey in the image. So maybe if I get a key task like, hey, this has to happen, talk to so-and-so about this, I can just delegate it and say, hey, can you please take care of this item for me whenever you get a chance? No hard deadline, or maybe by the next 2 days, please get this done and let me know when it's done, that type of thing. Now, there's a really great blog post that I came across on Zapier.com or Zapier. I forget how to pronounce it. But if you don't know, Zapier, I need to utilize them. I downloaded a free account a while ago, and it seems very helpful to integrate things. You can integrate different platforms and stuff. Say you've got an email list, or say you've got a landing page and you want to integrate it with your email list, like a MailChimp. There are some automatic integrations, but Zapier, basically, I think they pronounced it or named it that way because it's got API, and I forget what API stands for, but that's how these different systems talk to each other. Say you've got a ClickFunnels landing page and you use Zapier to integrate with MailChimp. So now when someone fills in their info in the form, it sends a zap and communicates with MailChimp, and now you're capturing information. You could even have another zap where it pulls it off the MailChimp list and drops it into Google Sheets. All this stuff can be automated, which is amazing because you can do all these things by yourself manually. But a system like this, they're not paying me to say this. I don't have an affiliate link or anything. I probably should sign up for one on this episode, but I can see the value of having those integrations because you're automating, you're eliminating friction, you're reducing human error. So quick shout out to Zapier, I forget how to pronounce it for that. But they have a really helpful blog post called How to Ruthlessly Prioritize Tasks to Get More Done by Belle Cooper. So shout out Belle. I'm going to kind of go through some of these points because I found it to be very helpful. And there were 4 things that you can do when you have a task. First, well, here are the 4. Do, defer, delegate, delete. So do means complete it now. Say this is something that can be done in 2 minutes or less. It would take more time to mark the email as unread and come back to it later as it would to just send the response. That is an example where you want to do it and complete it now. Defer might be something that requires a little more attention and it's not really urgent. So maybe that's the email you read that you mark as unread and you come back to later and you complete it later. It can be done tomorrow, this evening, 2 days from now. It's not urgent. 3 is to delegate. Maybe it is important, but you shouldn't be doing it. It's not in your 20% tasks. It's one of those 80% things that, yeah, it has to be done. Maybe not today, but you shouldn't be the one doing it because your time is better spent doing other things. Delegate it. Send it to an assistant, send it to a VA, etc. And 4th, delete. Maybe it's an email that doesn't require attention. It's a distraction. It's not really even for you. It's spam. You get a spam text or call. Delete. You don't have to reply to that. Don't spend any brain space or time thinking about those things. And then in the article, it also mentions 6 methods for prioritizing. I also found this to be very helpful. So it said, let me see, maybe I can pull up the article, How to Ruthlessly Prioritize. I think I exited out of it, but okay. There it is. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to share my screen as I read through this. If not, I mean, you can listen along. You don't really need to be looking at the screen. Share screen. Bam. Okay. So let me go to the 6 methods. Use a priority number 1, use a priority matrix. And this was shown in, I guess, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. They have a little matrix where it shows important, not important, urgent, not urgent. So if it's important and urgent, okay, do that. If it's important and not urgent, it can wait a little bit. If it's not important and urgent, maybe delegate it or delete it. If it's not important and not urgent, definitely delete it. If it's not important, you shouldn't even be wasting time with it. And if it's not urgent, it's one of those things that would be nice to have, but you don't really have to do. Number 2, use relative prioritization. So let's see, whatever's important. Like if your taxes are due today, file your taxes. If you have an assignment that's due tomorrow, maybe you can complete that next. You're prioritizing it in order of importance. Number 3, and it goes into more detail. I'm just covering the high level for you. Number 3, make a prioritized task list for today. So this is like your to-do list. You can use different apps and whatnot. I use Asana lately. I've been using Asana. I also use Airtable as a CRM type thing. I've kind of got a Frankenstein thing going on with different systems that don't really communicate. So I'm trying to figure out what works best for me. You've got to do the same thing for you. But basically make a prioritized task list for today. That's another plan that you can do to knock those things out. A 4th way of prioritizing is to focus on your most important tasks. And here it's calling it MITs. Basically, it's very simple. Your MIT is the task that you most want or need to get done today. So that's good to know. Number 5, pick a single thing to focus on. This was really cool. I actually implemented this immediately. It said, focus on a single thing. Here they've got a Chrome extension called Momentum, and it's free. You might want to check that out. If you're looking at my screen, I just set it up because it took 2 seconds. And when I open a new tab, instead of showing me Google Home or the Google webpage, it shows me the time. Good afternoon, Chris. And today, it tells me my one thing that I need to focus on today. And I've got a call with an investor that I know named Kevin Wood. That's going to be on a future podcast episode here soon, talking about how he's grown a real estate empire and whatnot. And he's based in Houston. And I'm also going to post that video in a local real estate investor group where I'm teaching people and attracting clients and whatnot. But anytime I get distracted and I want to open a new tab and go to Facebook, I'm like, okay, wait, focus, Chris. Here is your one thing that you need to focus on. And okay, number 6, find your 20% task. So the Pareto principle, like I said, you tend to get 80% of your results from 20% of your work. So really focus on that thing. Get very ruthless with your to-dos. You've got to really be sure to identify. And I even have a little sticky note here. I don't know if I've mentioned this recently. My 20% activities. So content creation, podcast 2 times a week, social media posts 5 times a week, videos 2 times a week, email blasts to my list 1 time a week, buyer and seller consultations as frequently as possible. And that's my 20%. 80% is everything else. I want to outsource and delegate that. So that's on my desk as a reminder almost. Like when I'm about to do something and I have a task that I'm about to get all hunkered down on and spend 20 minutes on, I look at this and I'm like, hold on, it's not on my list of 20%. Can I delegate this? Can I ask my assistant to do this? Or maybe I can delete it. Does it even have to be done? So that's all I have for you on this episode, priority management. Remember that quote that I mentioned, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. And this goes both ways. If you fail to plan and you try to make someone else rush their timeline when they need X amount of days or hours to get a task done, you're going to stress them out unnecessarily. You're going to cause anxiety and probably a little bit of tension because you did not give them enough time. So make sure to plan accordingly and just stay in touch. It's better to over communicate in some cases than to under communicate so that everyone's on the same page and nobody gets surprised or blindsided by, oh, I thought so-and-so had this and it's due tomorrow, but I need 3 days to do it. That doesn't really fly. But if you over communicate, you can know, hey, this has to get done. So-and-so hasn't had a chance to do it. We need to ask for an extension or things are going to get delayed. It's better to share that news earlier than the day before, which could cause some issues. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube, leave a review in podcasts in Apple, listen on Spotify, whatever it is that you do. And I'll catch you on the next episode of the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. Thanks so much. Bye.